And a welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We are here for a very special edition of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, as I have my puppy come into the studio here. We're here for a very special edition. She's excited too. Very special edition of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, following Syracuse's victory on the road in Death Valley up against Clemson on the football field. Syracuse has never won a game at Clemson in the history of their time facing off against each other until today. Syracuse winning the game 34-21, and we are here to talk about it. So get your family, friends, coworkers, colleagues, neighbors, sit around the computer, sit around your phone, and let's have this conversation together about the Syracuse Orange getting this victory, an historic victory for the Syracuse Orange, for Fran Brown, the history of this football program to get this victory. And to have this moment, to have this incredible moment. Syracuse has played in Death Valley numerous times, and they've had moments of success. Trevor Lawrence had never thrown a pick six until he did it against Syracuse in Death Valley a few years back. Syracuse has hung with teams, knocked quarterbacks out of games out in Death Valley, but they have never won the matchup until today, with the Syracuse Orange getting a victory 34-21 in this matchup. We're going to be breaking down the entire game, and I want to get your thoughts. So as people come in, if you have thoughts, then be sure to share them with us. You could send them off to me in our live feed. We are with you in 3 different places up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the globe. You'll find Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, as well as on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. So however you're connected with the show, we welcome you. We thank you for being here with us. And like I said, your comments, your thoughts, go ahead and send them in to us. Happy to hear what you are thinking and feeling in this moment, wherever you are. If you're in Syracuse, Central New York, if you're on the West Coast, somewhere down the East Coast, if you're one of those Syracuse fans who was out in South Carolina at the game, wherever you may be here with us today, and let's have a conversation about what this Syracuse Orange team was able to do on the road that they have never done before, which is get that victory and move forward here to have an overall record of 3-1 on the season. The Syracuse Orange feeling good, looking good. That Tennessee game, I want to go back to that Tennessee game for a second here. Like I said, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, send them in to us. Happy to have the conversation with you. I know that Cuse Nation is jumping, just having a good time, seeing a bunch of the live feeds from the Syracuse football players that are happening in real time. They are loving this thing. They're listening to music in the locker room and getting on that live feed. So really, really awesome stuff here. Now, the word that I'm hearing, which is very unfortunate, is that this could be an Achilles injury. And that would be awful. The tough part of today is, as great as this victory is for Syracuse, it looks like they're going to be without Steve Angeli for the foreseeable future. And I'm very, very sad to hear this. You know, that's the thing that people have been talking about is, is it the Achilles? He came off the field, and in the third quarter, came off the field, and we saw him have the immobilizing boot on his left leg. And not only that, but also being on crutches. And you saw he left the field at a certain point. So this is sad. It's frustrating. And that's the hard part of this, right? There's a lot for Syracuse to be thankful for. There's a lot of excitement around the program. There's a lot of excitement in general since Fran Brown came into the building. So I don't want to take away from that at all. I know that this is a tough moment for the team and tough moment for fans in the sense of your starting quarterback. But Ricky Collins Jr. came in on his second pass in the game through a touchdown pass that was reviewed and upheld to be a touchdown pass from Ricky Collins Jr. to Justice Ross Simmons, a wide receiver that scored multiple times in this game. So, I mean, Syracuse gets the victory. Like I said, there's a lot to break down, and we're very, very sad for what is going on. And, you know, I mean, what I'm seeing online is it the Achilles? Could it be the Achilles? Are we seeing the Achilles? And that's hopefully not true. Hopefully not. But whatever's going on with Steve Angeli, our prayers go out to him, our well wishes, our thoughts. Steve Angeli's one heck of a guy. I've had the opportunity to speak with him numerous times, and I've enjoyed every conversation I've had with him, as well as all the conversations that I've had with Ricky Collins Jr. And so today, let's discuss history. Today, let's have a conversation about something that most people thought was impossible for Syracuse to do. I told you going into this game that I wanted to pick them to win, but I thought that Clemson was going to have a good response to starting 0-2. You see, Dabo Swinney has been upset, talking about things like, hey, if you want to get rid of me, then, you're getting rid of a coach that obviously wins. And I'm going to go somewhere else and I'm going to have success because I'm 55 years old and I'm going to continue to coach. And, so we heard these comments from Dabo Swinney going into this game of people that have been frustrated with a 1-2 start for Clemson, which I find hilarious how people are frustrated with the 1-2 start for Clemson, yet there's people that are arguing that the 0-2 start for Notre Dame is fine and it's not a big deal, and they're still ranked in the nation's top 25. So, yeah, I mean, again, the craziness of saying Clemson was done going into this game while people still believe that Notre Dame has a season ahead of them. So, it's good for the goose is good for the gander is what I'm trying to say here. We're going to break down this game. We're going to take a look at it, but I want to welcome everybody for coming in. This is impromptu, so I know that literally we didn't have a plan to do the post-game show today at any specific time. I just thought to myself, hey, let's jump on. I'm in the studio. Let's make it happen. So I'm happy for everybody that's coming in and everybody that will come in. Like I said, family, friends, coworkers, colleagues, neighbors, everybody jump on. Syracuse alumni, so many of you have been on the show. You're welcome to come in here. We are inside of the Great Lakes Honda City studios, and of course, they are our exclusive studio partner. You can go and visit Great Lakes Honda City Monday through Saturday, weekly for sales and service on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Of course, you can also get a sneak peek of their inventory to buy and lease on GreatLakesHondaCity.com. That's GreatLakesHondaCity.com. So we're going to be breaking down the game here and going through this. Of course, if anything comes up in the moment, then we'll be sharing that with you. I don't want to confirm or deny that Steve Angeli has an Achilles injury. That's the thing that keeps coming up here. And of course, like I reserve for other players and like I had a conversation about today, and I need to check myself on this, is that, people ask me about injuries, and I think it's up to the school as well as the individual and their family to talk about it. I don't think it's, my right to do that. I say other people in the media, they're going to blow it up, they're going to say it, they're going to do all this stuff, and that's all well and good, but if the team hasn't announced something and the family hasn't announced something, the player hasn't announced something, I don't think that that's right to do. So let me be clear that when I said the word Achilles, this is something that's just been popping up, and I'm not going to sit here and confirm or deny that right now because I want to be fair to Steve and I want to be fair to Syracuse University. So, looking at this game and how everything got started out, Isaac and I, as you know, we do Tortora and Alford, which is a product of Wake Up Call, And when it comes to home games, we are on site, on location for moments like this. If this was a home game for Syracuse against Clemson, we would right now, because the game started at noon, we would be on site, on location at the Syracuse Inner Harbor location for Myers Creek. So I want to let everybody to know while you're here that we will be at Myers Creek for what we call Wake Up Call Game Day. Wake Up Call Game Day exclusively at Myers Creek this season for Syracuse football home games. That's why you're not seeing us there right now. But for Syracuse football home games, Isaac Elford and myself, Dan Tortora, a.k.a. DT, on site, on location for Syracuse football home games. And we will either be pre or post game depending on the kickoff time. If the games are at noon, we will always be post game because Myers Creek Inner Harbor does not open until 11:30 and the game's at noon. So this upcoming Saturday, September 27th, which is already a sellout crowd at the Dome, we will be at the Dome, Isaac and I, at noon for that kickoff between Syracuse and Duke. And after the game this Saturday, September 27th, a week from today, for those of you watching live, we will be on site, on location for Wake Up Call Game Day post-game show on site at Myers Creek, Syracuse Inner Harbor, 720 Van Rensselaer Street in Syracuse, New York. So come and see Isaac and I next week for the postgame after Syracuse faces off against Duke. Syracuse is 3-1 at the time that we're doing the show. Duke is currently playing NC State in an in-state rivalry, and Syracuse and Duke will face off in the Dome Saturday, September 27th. Kickoff is at noon. After the game, go to Myers Creek, Syracuse Inner Harbor on 720 Van Rensselaer Street in Syracuse, New York by Destiny USA. And Isaac and I will be there for Wake Up Call Game Day post-game, doing a live broadcast from Myers Creek, Syracuse Inner Harbor, Saturday, September 27th. And our start time for the post-game show is approximately 6 p.m. to give us enough time at the end of the game to conduct interviews, for me to speak with the players as well as Fran Brown, and then to head off to Myers Creek, Syracuse Inner Harbor. So before we get into this game, I want to let everybody know that for home games, you will not see me here in studio. You will see Isaac and I on site at Myers Creek. So you have the opportunity to come up, meet us, shake hands, talk with us, get some awesome food and drinks at Myers Creek. As always, drink responsibly, and you get to interact with the Wake Up Call Game Day live on-site broadcast. So a week from today, we will be post-game Syracuse-Duke, 6 p.m. after the noon kickoff. We'll be at Syracuse Inner Harbor at Myers Creek. So let's go into the game. Let's go to the beginning here. Isaac and I said in the pregame show that Syracuse would have to do something they did not do against Tennessee as well as UConn, which is score early, get on the offensive, do things well offensively in the beginning of the game. Syracuse finished off against Tennessee well, 28-26. They, in the last three quarters of that Tennessee game at the Aflac kickoff inside of Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia, I was on site for that game, and Syracuse played Tennessee to within 2 points in the last three quarters, 28-26. But in the first quarter, they gave up 17 and they scored 0. So because of that first quarter, Syracuse was playing from behind, and ultimately they lost the game. However, they played a good 3 quarters. They just didn't start well. Then you go into their first home game of the season, which was against UConn, second game of the season for the team, and Syracuse goes down 14-6 at halftime. However, they flip the script in the second half and go up 21-6 in the second half and overtime period to win the game. But they were down at halftime, and they didn't get started early, and they didn't find the end zone in the first half. So in those first 2 games, Syracuse struggled in the beginning of the game to get anything done. Well, against Colgate, they had no issue. They won 66-24. They took care of the game mightily. They had backups in the game. 3 different quarterbacks scored, and that was something that was anticipated, that Syracuse was not going to run into too much trouble against Colgate. So now here we are in this matchup, and the question becomes, against stronger competition in a hard place to play like Death Valley, will Syracuse get going early? And Syracuse absolutely did that. Shout out to Seamus Charles Shanley there, Mr. Seamus Shanley. Big love to Seamus and to all the Syracuse Orange current players, future players, and alumni. Seamus Shanley and I have a great relationship, as well as with his entire family. And I want to show him some love and appreciation as he's on the live feed watching with all of you here inside the Great Lakes Honda City studios. And I have nothing but love and respect for Seamus, and just happy to see a West Jenny kid, a Central and Upstate New York kid, make it to Syracuse, bet on himself, and play all the way to becoming a starter on the team. So much love to you, Seamus, and thank you for what you do even more so now, which is protect our community. And thank you to your father for doing that as well. God bless you all, and say hi to the family. So getting back into this game, Syracuse did the opposite of what they did against Tennessee and UConn, which was score early. One of the key factors that Isaac and I spoke about going into the game in Tortora and Elford here on Wake Up Call. And what happens in this game? Syracuse does score early. They score first. They take that opening possession. They score within the first 4 minutes with 11:01 left on the clock. They get the touchdown pass from Steve Angeli to Justice Ross Simmons. It's a 12-yard pass to match the number that Justice Ross Simmons wears, number 12, to go up 7-0. Then Fran Brown does something unimaginable, unthinkable. What some people might have thought was crazy, impossible. When it works, you're a genius. When it doesn't work, then everybody's like, why would you do that? But it worked. And what was that thing that worked? Immediately after scoring on their opening drive, Fran Brown tells his team, let's go for an onside kick. And that onside kick is owned by Syracuse. Ball recovered by the Orange, and the Syracuse Orange get the ball back a second off the clock. With 11 minutes to go, they scored at the 11:01 mark, and a second later, they had the ball back. Clemson's offense did not even get to touch the ball after Syracuse scored that opening drive touchdown, and then Syracuse comes down the field, a 23-yard field goal from rookie, true freshman there, the kicker, Trip Woody, gets it. Syracuse goes up 10-0. Then we see later on in the first quarter, there's a touchdown from Bryant Wesco Jr., a 38-yard pass from Cade Klubnik to him makes it 10-7. And then Syracuse responds with another touchdown, this coming 4 seconds into the second quarter. Once again, Syracuse scoring early at the start of a quarter, and this is on a drive where Yasin Willis and Will Nixon both share the ball on the ground. Jeff Nixon, father of Will Nixon, he's the offensive coordinator for Syracuse, ton of experience in the NFL, most recently with the New York Giants before coming to Fran Brown's staff last year, and he finally trusted in that run, gave Yasin the ball, gave Will the ball, and back and forth. Yasin got a bunch of yards, Will got a bunch of yards. They were making great decisions. They weren't just going down a lane saying, this is where the play is supposed to go. They were looking and making adjustments. Will Nixon did a great job in this game of making adjustments, of saying, I'm supposed to go down this lane, I don't see anything, I'm going to bounce outside and go. He's got quick legs. Yasin Willis, the power that he had to push the ball through the pile and to keep going. And so you see him go into a pile, he gets a few yards, then all of a sudden he's got a couple more yards because he won't stop running. Well, on that second touchdown drive and third scoring drive for Syracuse, Will Nixon, Yasin Willis, back and forth, just textbook awesome rushing of the ball. Talking to my dad about it, he said that's who he used to be. I said you love to see something like that. Will Nixon gets a 9-yard touchdown run. Syracuse goes up 17-7, but they were not done in this first half of play. Looking at a little over 5 minutes later at the 9:13 mark, Daryl Gill Jr., who has worked to earn his keep at Syracuse, he was behind a bunch of guys and trying to get a play here and a play there, and then those guys finish off their time at Syracuse. Some transfer, some go to the NFL. Daryl Gill Jr. steps up as a veteran here, and what does he do? This man that has worked so hard and bet on himself, he gets open, he chases down the ball, he gets underneath it, and a 22-yard pass from Steve Angeli ends in the end zone with a touchdown, Syracuse's third touchdown of the day, which puts them up 24-7 with 9:13 to go in the second quarter. But what would have turned into 3rd and goal. Mike said, any reports on our quarterback MRI? Like I said, there's different things that I'm hearing, Mike. I'm going to let Syracuse say what the official word is. But let's all remember here, I had people texting me during the game saying, like, is he out for the season? What's going on? And I'm like, do you think that they let us go down on the field and stand with him when he's on crutches and then go in and talk with him and the trainer in the middle of the game? Like, we got to relax here. We're going to find out. But Ricky Collins Jr., again, what did Fran Brown say about last year with Davian Kerr? He said, thank goodness Davian Kerr didn't transfer, right? Because here he is, a backup, and guys get hurt. He comes out and plays in the punt return game. He also comes out on defense as a DB, and now Davian Kerr's starting. Ricky Collins Jr. doesn't get the starting job, and then what happens now? You need Ricky to come in. He's part of a win against Clemson. He plays a big part in the second half of this game. He gets them into the end zone again, and now Ricky's the starter. So there's been multiple examples of the fact of these guys that run away from competition. If they don't get the starting job, they just go somewhere else. Well, Davian Kerr didn't do it. Now he's a starter. By the way, got an interception in this game. Ricky Collins Jr., he doesn't leave, and now he looks to be the starter for Syracuse moving forward. So in this game alone, you see Davian Kerr and Ricky Collins Jr., who committed to Syracuse, stayed with Syracuse. We're not the guy. We're not the starter. And now not only are they both starters moving forward, you would imagine, but Davian Kerr, who has been, and Ricky Collins, who seems to be the starter now with the Steve Angeli injury, both of these guys not only came up big and got the opportunity to get on the field, but in this game alone against Clemson, they were an integral part of how Syracuse ended up securing this victory, with Ricky Collins getting the team into the end zone and then Davian Kerr preventing a scoring drive from Cade Klubnik and the crew of the Clemson Tigers. So, this is why you don't leave. This is why you don't piss and moan when you're not the starter, and you keep working at it and you do the best you can, okay? I understand there's some situations that may not be ideal. Maybe a coach leaves. Maybe you were lied to. And I understand that in those moments, then yeah, it makes sense to leave. But in other moments when you just simply didn't get the starting job, look at what's happening. Look at the echoing of the words that come from head coach Fran Brown of Syracuse. Look at how this is coming to life with Davian Kerr, who got an interception in this game, and Ricky Collins Jr., who stepped in and helped lead the offense and did enough to get enough moments with first downs and to get into the end zone. So it's important. You got to build, like Mike said, family. You got to build a family and not just a bunch of individuals looking to get theirs on this team. If you want to get your own playing an individual sport, then play golf, play tennis, right? Go out there and do that. Run track, or cross country. If it's, and I'm not knocking any of those sports. I'm saying if you want to play an individual sport, then go play an individual sport. But if you're playing football, it's a team sport, and we need to remember that you can't just say we're a team, but you have to actually act like a team. And this family means something, and you would like to hope that people will see these examples with Syracuse, with Davian Kerr and Ricky Collins Jr., and realize you are truly just one play away. Speaking of one play, though, Brahim Long Jr., who got his first career interception collegiately in the game last week against Colgate, who wears number 0, another defensive back for Syracuse, well, he ends up getting flagged for taunting, and late in the first half, when it would have been 3rd and goal, Syracuse ends up making it 1st and goal, and arguably gives the opportunity for the touchdown, as opposed to if they had stopped him on 3rd and goal, that they would have kicked a field goal, speaking they of Clemson, giving up 2 downs by standing over a Clemson player, and whatever was said, whatever was done, he was hitting his helmet. Just go on to the next play. You can be excited. You can be passionate. Do it away from the player. Don't look down at them while they're doing it. Don't give the official a reason to throw a flag. Unfortunately, Brahim Long Jr. did. And instead of it being 3rd and goal, it became 1st and goal. And eventually Clemson got into the end zone with Adam Randall, their 6'2", 230-pound running back that's standing there with Cade Klubnik, looks like the quarterback of the team. He catches a pass in the middle of the end zone, 6 yards from Cade Klubnik. A great play down to the ground, but Randall was able to get his hand under it. The defensive player was not fully facing Randall, and he was able to capitalize. And so Syracuse's blunder of having a stupid penalty on taunting ends up giving new life to Clemson. 2 more downs to Clemson. They make the most of it, and the game is 24-14. Then you come out in the second half, and all of a sudden, you can't start because there's a lightning delay. So the game was postponed for over an hour, and Syracuse and Clemson eventually got back onto the field. And when they did, and by the way, Fran Brown went and spoke with Brahim Long Jr. after that taunting penalty, definitely had some words with him, but then he went over and hit him in the chest. And what I see from those moments, since you can't hear what Fran is saying, but being around Fran, I would say, and just kind of looking at the interaction in general, is it was one of those tough love moments of like, hey, don't do something like that. Don't put us in that situation. But then the slap on the chest afterwards is like, hey, but I still love you. You got this. You know, we're family. And I think that that's really important to take away from moments like that, that you could be a coach that screams at somebody or a coach that does nothing. Or you could do what Fran Brown did, and you can discipline your player. And then after you discipline them, say, hey, I still love you. Right? That's what a good parent does. That's what somebody who is a leader does more positively. You don't just go and scream at somebody. You tell them what they've done. You make it clear that it's unacceptable and that you're not going to stand up for that, and that you have standards that they're going to live by or they're not going to play. But after you do that, you remind them, I'm still your coach. I still got your back. We're still family. So Fran did a great job there. And it looked like he addressed the team around Brahim Long after that. So that was something I looked to as well, is that it seemed like he was letting the team know, not just Brahim, saying, hey, nobody do something like that. So little wind out of the sails, and you have halftime 24-14. Syracuse is up. Then you have the long lightning delay. If there is a strike of lightning within a certain amount of distance, they have to wait a half an hour. If at any point within that half an hour's time there is another lightning strike that's close enough, then it resets the clock at a half an hour and they have to do it again. So Syracuse, obviously there was multiple lightning strikes because Syracuse and Clemson had to wait over an hour before they got back on the field to finish this game, and the game came back around 3:45 p.m. Eastern Time. It was moved from ESPN to ESPN2, and because there was other games going on and things happening, but it stayed on television as it should because it was a really good game. And then in the second half, Syracuse kept going. Mike said, not just about football, it's family, make kids into young men, life after football. Yeah, man, everything we talked about here. So if you have a comment or a thought, make sure you share it with me during the broadcast here in this live feed. Always happy to be here with you. So if you have any thoughts, I know we have some that have come in here, and we do have some thoughts here. So King said, great win, Cuse. Thank you, King. SU Talk 44 said, can we call into the show? You cannot call into the show. You can write your messages into the show, and we'll share those as well. And then Jason reached out to me and said, I thought this was an NFL sit-start, my bad. Haha. So Jason is with us on Wednesdays when we do our Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. So I will still answer your questions, Jason. Happy to do that with you. So make sure for our fantasy football content, you're with Wake Up Call Worldwide every single Wednesday starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We call it the Fantasy Football Power Hour, probably presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, but we always go past an hour. Jason said, start 2 full PPR. Hampton, Sticky Ricky, or Wendell Robinson. Man, so I guess you're talking about Ricky Pearsall, Jason. So I would say start 2 full PPR. Man, I mean, if you're in full PPR, I would say Ricky and Wendell. And then start one, Nick Chubb, Jalen Warren, Pittman, or Kupp. That's tough. That's really tough. I'm going to say, I'm going to say Chubb, then Kupp, but it's close between Chubb and Kupp. I do appreciate the questions, and no need to apologize, man. Happy to answer your questions. And if anybody's got some thoughts about this Syracuse Clemson game, make sure you send it in. Like I said, we've gotten a bunch of your thoughts already, so make sure you send them over our way. Let's go into the second half and take a look at what's going on in this game. I'm also monitoring any news here on Steve Angeli and just in general here. So it's just sad to see something like this. Angeli went down with a non-contact injury. You just see him running in the open field in the second half of this game, and then he went down on the ground. So now that's what we're looking at here, is that, you know, we're looking for Ricky Collins Jr. to move forward. And, you know, Ricky Collins stating, he's like a brother to me, seeing that sucks, end quote. That coming from Ricky after the game. So, and I appreciate Syracuse on SI, the Juice Online, sharing that. Just a rough go. And Fran Brown, speaking with Matt Park in the postgame show, made the statement that Steve Angeli will be out, quote, for a long time, end quote. So, whatever it is, it looks like it's going to be keeping Angeli out, which is really, really sad to see. Mike said, wet turf. Hey, man, you know, sometimes things just happen. Sometimes things just happen. And it's really unfortunate, but, you know, this is why you stay on a team, right? And this is why you keep working, because you never know when the team's going to need you. And, you know, it's really sad to see that there were people that were so high on Ricky Collins in the spring. I got to break the exclusive that Ricky Collins was officially with the team at Snapdragon Stadium, practicing with the team before the DirecTV Holiday Bowl, because in the postseason, he, you know, even though he wasn't on the team that season, but he had signed with Syracuse, that he could work out with the team. And coming over from LSU, breaking that news, knowing that Ricky was there, a lot of people were excited. Then going into spring ball, people were excited just to have me show you a video of like 8 seconds of Ricky throwing the ball in shorts with nobody running at him and just, you know, just tossing the ball out. People just loved any video of Ricky Collins Jr. And then I said that Syracuse, in my opinion, after the spring practice, and it had nothing to do with Ricky not being good or capable. I never once said anything like of that regard. And I just said, I was like, I got a feeling that Fran's going to go get another quarterback if he can find one that he likes, you know. If he can find one he thinks will add to the team, he'll go get one. And shortly after spring ball, he did that. And he went and got Steve Angeli. I remember, you know, conversing, you know, sending something over to Fran, knowing that Steve was coming to campus and saying like, hey man, that's great that you got him coming to campus. And within a few days he had signed on with Syracuse. And then, you know, everybody jumped off of the Ricky bandwagon. Not everybody, but, you know, people jumped right to Steve Angeli, and people were dogging Ricky Collins Jr. Some people were mad at Fran that Steve won the starting job because Fran had said that Ricky won it. And it's like, ladies and gentlemen, do you not know that when time goes by, things happen? Like, the first girl you date might not be the one you marry. And so Ricky was that first date, but ultimately, you know, Fran chose to go on the next date with Steve Angeli, so to speak. And so Angeli doing what he needed to do, got the starting job. And Steve and Ricky publicly didn't say a bad word about each other. And we were told privately, hey, these guys, they're always working together. They're going over stuff together. And it was a competition, according to Fran Brown, the head coach, and Elijah Robinson, the D coordinator, Jeff Nixon, the offensive coordinator, all the way through at least the second scrimmage of fall camp. And then Steve won it, and then Steve had moments where people thought that he struggled too much against UConn, and they wanted to replace him with Ricky, and people were talking with me about, when do you let go of Steve, and when are you done with Steve, and when do you move to Ricky? And I'm sitting here thinking, you're a couple games in, like, what the hell are you talking about? The guy had one other game that he really played in substantial minutes for Notre Dame, and that was his first season in a bowl game. And then he filled in for 7 passes where he went 6 for 7 in the college football playoff for Notre Dame, aiding them past Penn State in a close 27-24 victory. But outside of that, the dude had no starts. So he comes to Syracuse, and it's like, okay, this is his second start ever, first for Syracuse, first in this offense, first with this entire team. He wasn't with any of these guys last year, so give him some time. And, then he has that Colgate game, and everybody seemed to get quiet about Steve Angeli. And now they're back to, and they saw Ricky in the Colgate game throw an interception. And then it's like, oh, okay, never mind. We didn't say that. We like Steve. So this like back and forth of just people judging Ricky, judging Steve, loving Steve, hating Ricky, loving Ricky, hating Steve, deleting their social media posts or just hoping that people didn't see them, and now you got them both. So this is why you don't dog somebody for somebody else. Steve won the job fair and square, but you never know who's going to be out there. And in the second half, you look at Syracuse got a field goal with 11:44 left in the third quarter, once again scoring within the first 4 minutes of the half. I mean, Syracuse scoring within the first 4 minutes of the second half. And of course, I might have said 5 minutes here, but they scored within the first 4 minutes of the first half as well on that first touchdown of the game to Justice Ross Simmons from Angeli for 12 yards. So they score in the first 4 minutes of the second half. Trip Woody, a 49-yard field goal. That's great to see because Woody, the question was, who's the kicker going to be now that you don't have Brady Denneberg? And so that was the question. Mike said, who's Syracuse's backup now? Well, based on the Colgate game, it's true freshman quarterback out of Texas, Luke Carney. Because that's the guy that came in third for Syracuse. So I would say it's Luke Carney at this point from what we've seen, right? And that's what I would imagine. But, Trip Woody, give credit where credit's due, the true freshman kicker. The question mark for Syracuse, one of the big question marks was, who's going to be able to make these field goals? Who can Syracuse trust? And I don't know if they came into the season with somebody that they really just outright trusted. And so for Trip Woody to make 1 yard shy of a 50-yard field goal in the outdoor elements, not inside, and there was wind on the field, and this one might have been at his back, but to make a 49-yard field goal in general for the true freshman kicker, good for Syracuse special teams. To do it in an outdoor stadium, also good. So shout out to Trip Woody and that 49-yard field goal. Syracuse goes up 27-14 with 11:44 left in the third quarter. Justice Ross Simmons scores again late in the third quarter, as I made mention of Ricky Collins. It was only Ricky's second pass of the day. He had a pass the possession before when Steve Angeli went out. And then on his second pass of the game, he finds Justice Ross Simmons, and Steve found him on the right side of the end zone in the first quarter. Ricky finds him on the left side of the end zone, right in front of the end zone. And there's something about Justice Ross Simmons catching these balls like he did against UConn in overtime. There's something about him catching these balls right inside of the end zone, and before he goes out, making sure that at least 1 foot is down and the ball was in play and the ball got past the goal line. So something about Justice Ross Simmons being that guy that if you're literally on the line, you go to him. and he's shown it on the right side in that OT win over UConn, showed it in the first quarter against Clemson, and he also showed it in this game on the left side with 2:12 left in the third quarter with the touchdown pass from Ricky Collins. So Ricky Collins has played in 2 games this season and has a touchdown pass in each of those games. Justice getting his second of the day on that 18-yarder on the left side of the end zone. After review, it's upheld. And then in the fourth quarter, Syracuse did not score. So we only saw Ricky Collins Jr. lead 1 scoring drive, but it was enough of a cushion that Syracuse had. The defense did what they needed to do, and they harassed Cade Klubnik. They got after him. They can still get better, but this defensive line really pushed, and ultimately that Davian Kerr interception with under 6 minutes to go helps to close this thing out, because Bryant Wesco Jr. did get into the end zone again. He had 2 of the 3 touchdowns today for Clemson with exactly 9 minutes left on the clock in the game in the fourth quarter. He had a 9-yard pass from Cade Klubnik. He was wide open, and Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator for Clemson, put together a fantastic play. You got guys just, screening, crossing each other, and so the play is going on, and you just see people shifting and doing different things. And of course, you see Bryant Wesco come from left to right. And in this shift of moving parts, he gets out. Nobody gets there. He's wide open. And that makes it 34-21. And Syracuse closes out the game en route to their 13-point victory. And so Vegas had them almost a 3-touchdown loser in this game. And Syracuse ends up winning by almost 2 full touchdowns, 34-21. Syracuse is 3-1 on the season, and they are now 1-0 in their first ACC game of the year. And Clemson 1-3, the opposite of Syracuse, and 0-2 in the ACC, losing in back-to-back weeks at Georgia Tech and at home against Syracuse. 2 teams unranked at the time of play. I would imagine that Syracuse will be ranked after this. If they're not, well, then we'll continue to talk about how stupid the rankings are and how they don't make any sense, because this is a big-time win for Syracuse, and Syracuse played Tennessee close for those last 3 quarters. And when you go back and look at Georgia versus Tennessee, and you watch that it took Georgia everything it could, and Tennessee had to miss a field goal toward the end of regulation, if that's the game that Georgia had to play against Tennessee and give them everything, then give Syracuse credit for hanging with Tennessee in the last 3 quarters of that first game of the season, with Tennessee having a new quarterback in Joey Aguilar and Syracuse having a new quarterback in Steve Angeli. And so now with this 3-1 record, Syracuse is halfway to being bowl eligible in just their first 4 games of a 12-game season. And this is one of those tough road tests that they got, and getting this victory is huge for them, because not only did Syracuse never gets any respect, Mike, you're right. So little to no respect nationally. So looking at this for the Syracuse Orange, not only do they have tough games this season, but the games that they have this season, their toughest games, all on the road. Every single one of them away from home. You had the neutral field game that Syracuse had, that neutral field game at the Aflac Kickoff, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, home of the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, and the Aflac Kickoff is overseen by Peach Bowl Inc., which oversees the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, and that's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, the home of the Atlanta Falcons. So you go back to that and you say, okay, that game against Tennessee was a top 25 opponent at the time, and Tennessee being a top 25 opponent on neutral field, they lose that game. Then you got to play Clemson, who's been ranked in the top 15 this season. They weren't ranked at the top time of play, but they have been ranked, and Death Valley is a tough place to play. Syracuse wins at Clemson. Syracuse still has to play at SMU, who's been ranked this season, at Georgia Tech, who I thought was a good team when they weren't ranked. Now they're in the top 20 ranking. And then you got a top 4 Miami. And after that top 4 Miami, you have a bye week, and then you have to play a top 25 Notre Dame that for no possible reason is ranked in the top 25, having a record of 0-2 going into week 4 of college football here for the FBS. So Syracuse doesn't only have a tough schedule, their toughest games come on the road, and as it was said by the commentators in this Syracuse-Clemson game, every one of these, Tennessee, neutral, at Clemson, at SMU, at Georgia Tech, at Miami, at Notre Dame, those 6 teams have all either been ranked or are still ranked. So, yeah, and the question about Dabo being run out of town is stupid. Here's my thoughts on Dabo Swinney. If the Clemson Tigers were to let go of Dabo Swinney, then every coach in America should be fired. Because if Dabo Swinney's 1-3 start with everything else he's done, playing for national championships, winning national championships, and going to a bowl game every single year that he's been the head coach from 2009 to now, if that is not good enough, if the arguable best coach in the nation next to Kirby Smart of Georgia, those are the only 2 that you could really argue are the best coaches right now active in FBS, if Dabo Swinney this season gets fired on top with everything that he's done for Clemson, then every coach in America should be fired. Because if that's the marker, well, nobody's above that. Because most of the coaches that are coaching right now have never played for a national championship, let alone got into the college football playoff at all. So I don't want to hear any of that. And so it's crazy to see what's going on here with Dabo Swinney. And I know that, the knee-jerk reaction, the what have you done for me lately, but that would be asinine to let a guy like him go. And I think that would be absolutely crazy. So, yeah, I have no idea what's going on there. And pretty stupid if you saw something like that happen. I don't see that happening. Again, if you fire Dabo Swinney, then every coach in America in that case should be fired. Because who's better than Dabo? Do people want to say Kirby Smart? Who else would you say? Active. We're not talking about Nick Saban. We're talking about active coaches. So let's continue on the conversation here. There's a bunch of layers for us to talk about. Tigers said congratulations to Syracuse and appreciate y'all watching up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the globe. Now, Gary said, I don't know what this is because it's not proper English, but he said, not he, resignation is not firing. He's not going to resign, Gary. I mean, unless he's going to take a job somewhere else. But why would Dabo do that? So that makes no sense. I don't see Dabo. No. I mean, they laughed at this guy when he became the head coach, allegedly, and look at what he's done. So Gary keeps writing fake AI. I have no idea what is fake AI. Unless you're fake AI, Gary. I have no idea. I'm very confused. But that's all right. That's okay. Syracuse gets the victory here. That's what happens sometimes when you're looking at this thing and trying to figure it out. The link is fake AI? What link? Okay. So anyways, but taking a look at what's going on here to break this down even more by the numbers for the Syracuse Orange in this victory, 34-21 over Clemson. Syracuse getting this victory. They've had a couple games that they have been out to Death Valley, and they've had moments where they've played well, but they've never been able to finish the game. In this case, they did. By the numbers before getting injured, Steve Angeli was 18 of 31, 244 yards, and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Yasin Willis finished the game, 18 carries, 94 yards, 5.2 yards a carry. Will Nixon, 10 carries, 46 yards, 4.6 yards a carry, and the team's only rushing touchdown of the day. And then receiving, Jonte Cook led the way for his first 100-yard game as a member of the Syracuse Orange, 113 yards on 6 catches, averaging almost 20 yards per catch. Justice Ross Simmons, 2 touchdowns on 5 catches, almost 50% of his catches in the end zone, and 53 yards on the day. Darrell Gill Jr. with the other touchdown that Syracuse had through the air, 2 catches, 1 for a touchdown, 41 yards. Dan Villari, 4 catches for 41 yards for the leader of the tight end room. Out of the backfield, Will Nixon caught 3 for 23, and Yasin caught 1 for 7 yards. So that's what it looks like. On the other side of it offensively, Cade Klubnik, who has had a subpar look at this here. When you look at Cade Klubnik by the numbers, now coming into this game, Steve Angeli, 64.1% completion percentage, somewhere around there. And Cade Klubnik was under 60% completion percentage at 58 or 59.1. I think it was 59.1. He had 400 yards less passing in 3 games than Steve Angeli. Klubnik with 633 coming into the game. Steve Angeli's 1,072 led the entire nation at 1,072 passing yards. And then outside of that, you look at the fact that Cade Klubnik came into the game in 3 games, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Angeli, 8 touchdowns passing and 2 interceptions. So by the numbers, Steve Angeli was better than Cade Klubnik when it came to touchdown to interception ratio, as well as overall passing yards and his completion percentage. And Cade Klubnik has obviously been a starter with the Clemson Tigers longer than Steve Angeli has even been on the Syracuse Orange team. So when you look at by the numbers here for the matchup here, like I said, with Steve going out before he went out, going 18 of 31, he's 58.1% completion percentage, where Cade Klubnik attempted 60 passes, 62% completion percentage. So he did up his completion percentage in the game despite the loss. And then this guy is just a freak of nature. Adam Randall, who I was talking about going into this game, he, in the matchup, the running back for Clemson, 16 carries, 130 yards, 8.1 yards a carry. He gets it to the end zone on the reception that he had, though. So he gets it to the end zone on the reception, not on a rush, but just incredible on the ground, 130 yards rushing and 8.1 yards a carry. And then beyond that, TJ Moore, we look at him. He led the team for Clemson in reception yards and in receptions, 8 catches, 92 yards. Bryant Wesco Jr., who had 2 of the 3 passing touchdowns, he had 2 of those 2 catches, 4 touchdowns, were on 6 overall receptions, 79 yards. And then Antonio Williams, 5 catches for 49. Adam Randall had the other touchdown, and out of the backfield, 7 catches overall, 44 yards. Tyler Brown, 3 catches for 33. Tristan Smith, 2 for 26. Christian Bentancur had 2 for 15. Josh Sapp had 1 for 13. And then when you look at fumbles, Rashard Perry for Syracuse recovered a fumble, and that fumble was by Adam Randall. And then defensively, in the return of Devin Grant, and you speak about how well Adam Randall played in the game, well, who was able to stop him in the open field at one point during this game was Devin Grant. And I said right after it happened, with that one-on-one tackle, Grant stopping Randall in his tracks, I said, that's why you need Devin Grant on the field. He led Syracuse with 10 total tackles. 8 of those were solo, and he had 2 tackles for a loss. 1 pass defended. And then sack for this game, Brahim Long Jr. got Syracuse's only sack of the game, but Syracuse was able to hurry Cade Klubnik and do some good things. And so Brahim Long Jr., 8 total tackles, 3 solo, had the sack, tackle for a loss, pass defended. And then Cornell Perry, he did a nice job. You heard his name in the game. 7 total tackles, 6 of those 7 were solo, so he led the team with solo tackles, having 6 on the day. And then Demetrius Samuel Jr., the true freshman corner, he had some nice plays against Colgate, had his first interception, first reception, and first punt return in that Colgate game. In this game, he has 6 total tackles to be in the top 4 tacklers for Syracuse against Clemson on the road in Death Valley. 5 of those 6 were solo tackles that he had in the game. On Clemson's side of it, for their defense, Wade Woodaz led the team with 10 total tackles, 4 solo, and 1 pass defended. Sammy Brown had 8 total, 4 solo, and he had a pass defended as well. Avian Terrell had 6 total tackles, 2 of those solo, 4 passes defended. And as far as sacks, there was 3 sacks on the day, and those sacks for Clemson on Syracuse came from Jaheim Lawson, as well as TJ Parker and Stephilian Green. So that's what you have for the by the numbers portion of this post-game show in Syracuse's 34-21 win over the Clemson Tigers. So overall team stats to look at this, Syracuse had 24 first downs, but they did more with less because Clemson had 29 first downs. On third down, Syracuse was 3 for 15, which was not terrible, right? A fifth of the time they're getting it, so that's 20% that they had on third down. And then Clemson was 3 for 13. Fourth down, Syracuse was 2 for 2. Clemson was 1 for 5. Clemson turned the ball over on downs numerous times in the game. Clemson outgained Syracuse in yards by 70, 503 to 433. They had 363 passing yards to Syracuse's 278. And Syracuse in rushing beat Clemson on the ground 155 to 140. But yards per rush in the game, Clemson led 6.4 to the 4.1 from Syracuse. Penalties in the game was close. Clemson had 8 penalties for 75 yards. Syracuse had 7 for 52. But again, you win the turnover battle. There's Syracuse +2 in the turnover battle in the game. They forced and recovered a fumble, and they had the interception as well, and that's how you win the game. The game was almost even in time. Syracuse had it for 30 minutes and 40 seconds. Clemson for 29 minutes and 20 seconds. But again, Syracuse did something that they didn't do against Tennessee and UConn, which is come out of the gate and get going offensively, scoring early. Their rushing attack did well to condense the clock, and they won the turnover battle. So those are 3 key pieces here. Gary said 4 games, Steve Angeli, 2 years eligibility with 5-star wide receiver freshman. And Gary said, is it the Achilles? Once again, Gary, I said that's the word that's going around, but I will leave it up to Syracuse and Fran Brown to make that discussion when they need to make it. By the way, folks, obviously you have to get things checked out, and there's time that it takes. Like I said, I had people asking me during the game if, right after Steve got injured, within a few minutes of it, within the same quarter, they're like, hey, is he out for the season? Is this or that? And I was like, hey, y'all need to kind of take a step back here and realize that the game is still going on. They're not going to let that information out. And so, we'll see what happens in that case. But I do want to go to something that you said here, Gary, and that being Steve Angeli, and what does he have as far as the amount of time that he would have. So he came to Notre Dame in 2023, and I want to go back and assess this all. So let's go back to 2023. So Steve Angeli, in that game in 2023, he played in multiple games. Like I said, he was there in the bowl game, but Steve Angeli played in 7 games that season. Even though he wasn't the starting quarterback, he still got into 7 games in 2023. And in 2024, for Notre Dame, he was in 8 games. So both of those years count. So 2023 counts against his eligibility, and so does 2024, which means he came to Syracuse with 2 years of eligibility, and this would put him at 4 games. You can play in 4 games and still be redshirted. You can't play more than 4. So it looks like, yes, if this is going to be an injury that is long for him, then you redshirt Steve Angeli. If it's going to be an injury that's going to take him out for a long time, you would redshirt him this year and then have him for 2026 and 2027 is what it looks like. So the redshirt rule and the 4 games, just for people that don't know, the 4-game limit applies only to regular season games. So that is something that you need to know. The redshirt rule in college football allows players to participate in up to 4 games in a season without losing a year of eligibility. So if you look at Steve Angeli, he gave up a year of eligibility in 23 and in 24. Here in 25, he's played in 4 games. So he is at the limit, but he has not passed the limit. So or at the maximum, I should say. He's at the max, but he hasn't passed the max. So Steve Angeli right now, if this is going to be a long-term injury, a season-ending injury, then Steve Angeli can redshirt this year as if he never played this year, and he can have 26 and 27, which would be huge because Ricky Collins Jr. has this year and 2 more years after it. So that means that Ricky and Steve would both have 2 more years of eligibility. Gary says, can he come back in the bowl game? They say that the 4 games, I think, only have to do with the regular season. But here's the thing, Gary. You would not want him to come back for 1 game, because then if he got hurt, then what do you do? So we'll see what it is. We'll see, how long-term. God willing, this injury is not long-term. But, you always pray whenever something happens to somebody that, 1, it's not life-threatening, which, we know that this injury, he's out there doing his thing. So you always pray when something happens that it's not life-threatening, it's not long-term in a bad way, and it's not short-term in a bad way. But if it has to be anything, may it be the shortest short-term there is, and may he heal completely and heal for good, and no matter what, heal through Jesus Christ and through God, and to handle well whatever comes his way in and out of his control, this being out of his control. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And I pray that for anybody needing a prayer right now. So, Gary said, schedule loosening up in comparison before. This is a tough schedule, Gary. This is a tough schedule all the way up. So, there is no loosening of this schedule at all. Gary said, great, you're a Christian. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Always have been, always will be. God is first, and God's the most important. I don't know how people live in this world without God. I don't think you can. I think people realize that over time, and hopefully they won't continue to do it if they have. So, God bless. Gary said it's looking better. Gary, it's a tough schedule, man. Just talking about it, I said Syracuse's toughest games are away from home. They still got to go at SMU, at Georgia Tech, at Miami, at Notre Dame. The great thing is that between Miami and Notre Dame, Syracuse has a bye week, which is huge. Because if they had to play at Miami and at Notre Dame, that would be awful. Syracuse has one of the most difficult schedules in the country right now. And so, yeah, but send us your thoughts, send us what's on your mind. If you're watching, this is live right now, but I know people will watch this on playback. You can feel free to comment on this video itself and on the feed and let me know what you're thinking and what's on your mind. So, Notre Dame, we'll have to see what happens. I do want to get into what's going on in the schedule because as we are live right now on a college football Saturday, I can let you know the current scores. So we can take a look at some of these teams. Now, Florida State is beating Kent State at home 66-10. Auburn and Oklahoma, which I think is a great game, a pick'em game. I picked Oklahoma. Right now, Oklahoma's up 22-17 with under 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Notre Dame is beating an unranked Purdue. If Notre Dame goes 1-2, they'll say the season's saved. But when Clemson was 1-2, they dropped out of the polls. So figure that one out, how one 1-2 team is so much worse than another 1-2 team and how one season is saved and the other season's over. And this was before Clemson lost today. Keep in mind, I'm talking about 1-2, not 1-3. So, and I don't think Clemson's season's over. But, they're not going to the college football playoff, I think is a fair thing to say unless everybody started losing. Georgia Tech is in a close game in Temple. I said that's a trip-em game. Georgia Tech's got to win that game to stay ranked, in my opinion. They're up 28-14 at home. And outside of that, let's look at some games that finished. Michigan beat Nebraska. I picked Nebraska at home, who's unranked. Michigan barely got out of Nebraska. They won 30-27. In the Oregon State game, you're looking at 41-7, a win for Oregon, who will more than likely stay in the top 6 in the country. Ole Miss blew out Tulane 45-10. It's Tulane's first loss of the season. The Lane train is... That's funny how it's the Lane train that beat Tulane, but the Lane train is 4-0 in Ole Miss. Tulane's now 3-1 under John Summerall. Tennessee blew out UAB 56-24, and Texas Tech, that game was ugly for a while. It was 10-3. Texas Tech turned it on in the second half. They scored 24 points in the fourth quarter. They really didn't turn it on in the second half, just in the fourth quarter. They scored 0 points that's crazy. So in the first half, Texas Tech led Utah at halftime 10-3. Nobody scored in the second half. Then Texas Tech outscored Utah on the road 24-7 in the fourth quarter to win 34-10. So, yeah. So, Gary, I would say that this schedule is very competitive moving forward here. So I would absolutely say that to you. Miami, Notre Dame, there's a lot on this. Don't look at an unranked SMU and think that that's not a good game. So there's plenty of tough that Syracuse is going to have to face as we go forward here. But Syracuse making history today, doing it for the Block S and getting the victory. Like Fran said, we do it for the S. And he also made the comment of the fact that, obviously this is huge. He said, we're getting closer as a family. We love each other. And Syracuse makes history, getting their first ever win in Death Valley. And it's the third time that they beat Clemson. They beat Clemson a million years ago. And before the 21st century, they beat Clemson. And then they beat them in Syracuse inside of the Dome. And that victory came under Dino Babers. And now this victory coming in Fran Brown's second season as the head coach of Syracuse and as a head coach overall, as he was the defensive backs coach in Georgia, and he was there with them for 2 national championships. So Fran knows what it takes to win a national championship. He travels up north to Syracuse and right by where he came from in his stomping grounds being Camden, New Jersey. And not only did he say good things about Syracuse in this post game, but he also said, "What up to Camden?" and wanted to make that note there as he puts his city on the map and the city of Syracuse on the map. He said nobody deserves it more than the people in the city of Syracuse. And so showing some love to my hometown, I appreciate that very much from Fran Brown. Syracuse gets a historic victory on the road in Death Valley. So now they've beaten Clemson twice, once at home, and that beating Clemson at all in the Dabo Swinney era is an historic moment for a program. Syracuse has now beaten them at home and on the road, and this time doing it in Death Valley by multiple scores. Syracuse is 3-1, and they will be home this coming week, a week from today, on Saturday, September 27th, and on Saturday, September 27th against Duke. The kickoff is at noon Eastern time, and after that game is played, join us for Wake Up Call Game Day on site, on location at Myers Creek in the Syracuse Inner Harbor. Following Syracuse facing off against Duke in the Dome, we will be, and we being Isaac Elford and myself, Dan Tortora, we will bring you Wake Up Call Game Day live at Syracuse Inner Harbor at Myers Creek, 720 Van Rensselaer Street in Syracuse, New York. So you're going to that Syracuse-Duke game at noon, or you're watching it wherever you may be. And so Syracuse-Duke, Saturday, September 27th. After the game, join us for Wake Up Call Game Day live on site at Myers Creek, Syracuse Inner Harbor. And that live broadcast following the Syracuse-Duke matchup will happen at approximately 6 p.m. We look forward to seeing you out there. And we look forward to seeing you at Myers Creek, Syracuse Inner Harbor for Wake Up Call Game Day for all Syracuse football home games this season. We've already had 2 that we've done out there for Syracuse UConn, Syracuse Colgate. Our next one up is Syracuse Duke, and we will also be with you for 3 more games after that for Wake Up Call Game Day at the Syracuse Inner Harbor location for Myers Creek on 720 Van Rensselaer Street in Syracuse, New York. And that's going to be, obviously we'll be with you twice in the month of October, and then once right after Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving week. So we'll be there for you against Duke, and that'll be on Saturday, September 27th. Then we'll be back for Wake Up Call Game Day, Saturday, October 18th, 3 days before my birthday, when Syracuse faces off against Pitt. Halloween, Friday, October 31st, for that night game. Will be a pregame show for that night game against North Carolina. And, of course, to end the regular season and the home season for Syracuse on Saturday, November 29th against Boston College. So we look forward to seeing you out at Myers Creek for the next game after Syracuse plays Duke on Saturday, September 27th. That kickoff's at noon. Wake Up Call Game Day Live will be on site at Myers Creek, Syracuse Inner Harbor, following Syracuse Duke at approximately 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We look forward to seeing you out there. Any final notes that I'm taking here? Too many losses, too much of our schedule. Teams across the board overrated, kept, except for Georgia Tech and Miami is what he said. Went from very competitive. Preseason rankings are falling apart. So, yeah, Gary, I disagree with you. I think at SMU is tough, and North Carolina, well, we'll see. At SMU is tough. Pitt always plays Syracuse tough. At Georgia Tech is tough. At Miami's tough. At Notre Dame is tough. So, and Duke getting the victory, that gives more momentum for this preseason. Isaac and I picked Syracuse to be 8-4. And so Gary's saying 7-5, maybe 8-4. So you're right on line with what we said, Gary, there. So we agree on that portion of this. Happy for you all to be here with me. This is Syracuse and Clemson postgame on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. So prayers for Steve Angeli, and of course prayers for Ricky Collins Jr. as he steps in, and much appreciation and respect for Fran Brown. You know that Fran believes in God and leans on his faith. He leans on Dart being detailed, accountable, relentless, and tough. It'll be interesting to hear what he has to say, because I asked him after 2 games this season before Colgate what he felt about Dart and the culture of this team. He said he thought the team at the point of the Tennessee loss and the UConn win, he said at 1-1, he thought Syracuse this season was relentless and tough. They were half of Dart, but they were not detailed and accountable like they were the year before. Now seeing this victory over Clemson, let's see if Fran thinks that all of the 4 letters in Dart are happening with this team. Are they detailed? Are they accountable? Are they relentless? Are they tough? We'll find out what Fran has to say, so make sure you stay close to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and all of our social media as I speak with the head coach of the Syracuse Orange, Fran Brown, this week, as well as speaking with the student athletes. A lot of great stuff to come on Wake Up Call by the grace of God. Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. So want to just let y'all know here that you can find us in our normal schedule on Wake Up Call Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /Wake Up Call DT, as well as on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. And of course, once the shows go live, they'll hop into the archive. The audio of this show will automatically be put into the archive tonight. Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Make sure to follow and subscribe. And many thanks to our incredible team that you can support in Central and Upstate New York, Great Lakes Honda City, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, GG Cards and Breaks, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Brian's Landing, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Mon Paz, the snack capital of the world, Avicoli's, Game Point Sports Complex, Pizza Man, Chick-fil-A DeWitt, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Mother's Cupboard, and of course we are the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse, your Binghamton University Bearcats, and your Onondaga Community College Lasers. You can find all of them on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, find our BSC Syracuse playlist for the Bobcats, our Binghamton playlist for the Bearcats, and our OCC playlist for the Lasers. They're all on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage, along with all of our partners that you're seeing on the screen as well. And of course, for more information on your Bobcats, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com. For the Bearcats, go to binghamtonbearcats.com. And for the lasers, go to OnondagaLasers.com. Final note here, many thanks to Myers Creek for Wake Up Call Game Day being our exclusive home for Wake Up Call Game Day for all Syracuse football home games in this 2025 season. We will see you at Myers Creek after Syracuse faces off against Duke in the Dome. Isaac and I will see you at Myers Creek, Syracuse Inner Harbor, 720 Van Rensselaer Street at approximately 6 p.m. to follow the Syracuse-Duke game. Come for Wake Up Call Game Day live at Myers Creek, Syracuse Inner Harbor, following Syracuse and Duke, and we're excited to see you out there. With that being said, as we always say inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, God bless, no stress, do your best, and I'm going to end this show with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. God, I want to thank you for waking us up today. I want to thank you for breathing breath into us, giving us life from the beginning. May we spend our life walking in your footsteps. May we follow your way, trust your truth, and live the life that mirrors the life of Jesus Christ. May we be kind, stay away from sin, be good to each other in word and deed, and treat people the way that we want to be treated. May we all heal completely and for good. And no matter what, may we heal through you, my God, and handle well whatever comes our way, in and out of our control, including for Steve Angeli and for all of his loved ones and everyone whose life he affects, because obviously Steve being injured affects a lot of people that truly love and care for Steve. So we pray for a speedy, fast, and full recovery, and that he's back on the field before he knows it. We pray for Ricky Collins Jr. to step in, be healthy, be well, to be confident and believe in himself. We ask you, God, to get everyone home safe and sound from the Syracuse-Clemson game and wherever our travels take us, and to be safe and sound at home, in a hotel, or wherever we are today on the road, or if we're back in our homes. And of course, we ask for health, safety, happiness, and to give us all of your gifts to do your will and be well today, tonight, and so on, whether we're traveling, staying put, or both. May our lives be long, fun, and go by slowly, and may we always be with each other, even in death, by the grace of God, because dying, Jesus destroyed our death, and rising, he restored our lives. So may we be safe and sound. May everybody be well. Congratulations, Lord, to everyone chasing their dreams. May we catch them and go far beyond them. And may we all just get better, including Steve. Never like to see anybody be injured. So, God, please help us all to heal in all the ways we need it. In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Syracuse making history at Clemson. Never before have they won in Death Valley, and now they beat Clemson 3 times in their history, 2 times as ACC foes, 1 in the Dome, now 1 in Death Valley. Syracuse is 3-1, and they are 1-0 in the ACC. We'll talk with you soon from the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. Be well, stay safe, and be kind.